All right, well, good afternoon. Back after spring break and ready to get back to work, and we'll have a busy agenda over the next couple of weeks. So one of the things that we're going to spend a lot of time on between now and the end of session is working together with the Senate to advance proposals which are aimed at protecting Missourians from the bureaucracy's war on taxpayers. There are various pieces of legislation which are necessary because the Department of Revenue has continued to seek new methods for generating revenue by treating Missouri families and businesses unfairly. This is not based upon legislation we passed, but rather it's based upon new interpretations of existing law, which are made solely for the purpose of trying to collect revenue that's never been traditionally collected by the Department of Revenue. Too often we see government bureaucrats run rampant over the rights of Missouri taxpayers. The Missouri House and Senate are ready and willing to stand up to these overreaches. We're going to hear more about these proposed pieces of legislation from Representative Koenig and Senator Kraus. I applaud them for bringing these forward, and we're going to work with them to lead efforts to rein in these out-of-control practices that see Missouri families and businesses as nothing more than sources for additional tax revenue. With that, I will turn it over to Representative Koenig.
I would like to thank my colleagues and the business community for standing firm against questionable and unfair practices of the Department of Revenue. It's clear that our governor and his administration are trying to squeeze every penny that they can out of taxpayers and hardworking Missourians. It is also clear that in many cases, they are using questionable interpretations of the law. The business community needs certainty and predictability in our tax code in order to prosper in our state. In some cases, the Department of Revenue has sent out contradicting statements on what a taxpayer, on what should be taxed. The governor has a war on the taxpayer. Such practices are notification by audit, delaying refunds and refusing refunds, and breaking IRS rules in order to comply with their own. Legislative action is needed to combat this war on the governor. And we've heard a number of bills in the House Ways and Means Committee that are now making their way to the floor, and they should be on the floor this week. And I look forward to working with Senator Kraus as we pass these priorities over to the Senate. Senator Kraus.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. For 2 years, I have been watching as the Department of Revenue has systematically targeted certain taxpayers, mostly businesses. Last summer, I chaired a Senate interim committee to study the tax practices of the Department of Revenue. It has become evident that the department has clearly focused on changing definitions and policies to raise revenue. It is my belief that came from a directive from the governor, and I believe that it's our obligation as the representatives of the people to push back when government overreaches. We must not allow them to continue to change policies to raise taxes and raise revenue. I have been committed to working with the governor and the Director of Revenue, but I'm also committed to making sure the average Missouri taxpayer is protected from government overreach.